Hi, welcome to Sipping Tea with Sabrina. In just a second, we'll be sharing the tea on Black men entering and remaining in development and the advancement space. But if we've never met before, I'm Sabrina, the Dream Team Architect and President and CEO of Building Better Boards. I specialize in building elite leadership teams for corporate and nonprofit boards and CEOs, turning high level potential into extraordinary performance. Transformative board facilitator, again for corporate and nonprofit. And I'm an international keynote speaker. I'm driving $14 million in revenue and organization resilience. I'm an expert in strategic leadership and governing excellence. And we have with us today, someone I'm very happy to have on this stage who can really speak to this topic. We have with us Mr. Ken Miller. He is a consultant and an author and a grant writer. He holds multiple hats, and this conversation is critical to those wanting to understand Black men entering and remaining in development and the advancement space. So whether you are a nonprofit, a mission-driven company, or an association, that is why we have Ken with us today. So Ken, can you share a little bit about yourself and your experience?
Yeah, I would love to. First of all, thank you, Sabrina, for allowing me, an opportunity to share. And that's exactly what is an opportunity. I'll just do the quick version. I'm 62 years old. I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur, but I grew myself through the fundraising and development world. I've been a fundraiser now for about 15 years, and I still am a fundraiser. I have consulting clients. I work with different organizations, both in the tribal world, do a lot of work in there, and also in the nonprofit social services world. But the real simple part is I'm just a grateful Black man today that I found a field and a sector that gave back to me as I gave to it.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. And he's being modest. He has a lot going on, y'all, but we are going to allow him to express his great intelligence and his background. We have a set of questions here. So, you know what, Ken? I've learned a little bit about you. I know you've had quite a journey from the Ivy League to the streets and back. Can you share a pivotal moment that led you to focus on nonprofit fundraising and mentoring young men of color?
Sure. So because of my history, I was homeless for 20 years on the streets in 3 different states. I'm also a 3-time convicted felon, spent years behind bars. And when I got released in 2007, I had nothing, literally nothing. I had never seen email. I had never seen texting. And I got out and first worked in a warehouse. And then I met a gentleman named Jim Posey up in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm from Alaska originally. And he said there was a position open as I thought he said executive director, but he said development director or fundraiser for a nonprofit. And it was a soup kitchen. And I was very familiar with soup kitchens. And so I went down there, and through the exposure of another Black man who looked out for my best interests, and he trusted me, I got my first position as a development director for a nonprofit called Beans Cafe in Anchorage, Alaska. And that's what began. And so really the pivot is one Black man helping another Black man, one Black man believing in another Black man. And he became my mentor. And then I've been able to pass it on to many, many others.
That is a story. And thank you for sharing that story. So in your experience, what are the most significant barriers Black men face when entering the field of nonprofit development and advancement?
Lack of knowledge of the field, lack of knowledge of the sector, lack of knowledge of development and advancement. What does that mean? What does that entail? What qualifications do we need? Is it something, and this is something we find, I believe, in the Black male community, is it masculine enough? Because it's predominantly a female field. That's the truth, but it is. But there's a sense that my colleagues and my homeboys and my buddies aren't going in that direction. So why should I? Well, the why is because you'll do something that you can sleep very well at night, something that's giving back to either your college if you're in the advancement field, or through your community if you're in the social services. And not only that, you can make good money, and I'm a real frank one on that. You can take care of your family and your needs. And also you have a sense that, you're doing something positive for the greater good of literally of your community, or I could say the world or the country or your state or your college. So there's a lot of pluses, but there's a lot of reasons why we don't enter, because I always look at it two ways. And I know you will bring this up. Do we come in and do we stay in? And they're two not diametrically, but they're two different worlds. And we have difficulties and concerns in each of them.
It's very interesting. But in your look, I hear what you're saying, but this is the question that I have. Like, how has the landscape changed for Black men in fundraising over the past decade, and what challenges, persist?
100% better. 100%. Easy for me to say that. And I'll explain why.
Yeah.
When I came into the field in 2010, and I went to conferences, first of all, I never saw a Black man speak from the stage, period. And I went to a lot of conferences. That's number one. Number two, I barely saw any Black men walking around the conference. And if we did, we didn't know each other. There was nothing that brought us together in communal spirit for the betterment of our sector and our group of Black men in fundraising. That's number two. So we had no affinity groups. And then the other thing I realized is that we had a dearth of individuals with advanced degrees and or CFREs or ACFREs or CAPs. Those are just some of the designations. See, I'm a CFRE. I can maybe go into that, maybe not. But we had very, very few. And so I identified a problem. That's me. And I'll take credit. I identified a problem and I said, what can we do about this problem? And so we ended up starting a group called Men of Color in Development back in about 21. I was the founder of that, and I started that. It's about 450 deep now. We also made sure that we had an opportunity to get engaged with AADO, African American Development Officers, which is men and women. Obviously, we had a problem with the CFRE. I realized there was only 56 CFREs out of 8,000 in the world, and I had a concern with that. So we started a black male study group just for the CFRE test. And so we started doing things that wasn't available. And then one of the main things that I did is that I pushed to have Black men speaking from the stage. So I set up with AFP, Association of Fundraising Professionals. I was on the board for 5 years. And I set up that I want this. As a board member, as a member of AFP, I want Black men speaking. So we set up the Black men's panel, and it's been coming up on our 4th year of the Black men's panel at the Association of Fundraising Professional International Conference, 2,500 people. So again, we didn't have any of that. And especially if I think of probably the number one would be MOSID, Men of Color in Development. Look it up, the website's there. That's where we can get together and we can speak to our difficulties, our triumphs too. I'm a big one on wins and triumphs. Mm-hmm. And then we're not alone. We're not in a silo, because many times we are, unless we have like a HB, CU or some type of other organization that's predominantly Black led.
Yeah. Men of Color in Development. That is key. Because you're right. People feel like they are in a silo and no one wants to feel like they are alone. So thank you so much for everything that you have done to shine light on these men who have dedicated their lives just like anyone else to their cause. Thank you so much. Now, I know you have a upcoming book.
Yeah.
And it is intriguingly titled Surviving Kin. Okay. So can you give us a sneak peek into a key lesson from your personal journey that you believe is crucial for aspiring Black fundraisers?
Sure. First of all, my publisher maybe changed the name, so it's called Finding Ken, which is
Right.
still somewhat the same because I really need to find out who I was and how I have my self-talk and my identification as a black man, as a drug addict, as an ex-con. Who I had to find me, and I'm very comfortable with me today. Okay, so we'll do that part, and then the lessons I've learned. And it's interesting when you read your story is one of resilience, which is the comeback from the setback. One of the lessons that I really talk about often is failing forward. And what does that mean? So the fail forward is you're running toward a goal and you slip, fall, trip, whatever, but you're falling forward. You're still in pursuit of the goal, but you failed, you had a little setback, but you failed forward as opposed to being static or going backwards and falling backwards. That's what I didn't want to do. And I've learned that I've had the ability to fail forward. And that's something that's it's a pivotal part in my book, and something that I talk about is that failing forward.
I'm just so impressed by you, Ken, and again, I really thank you for sharing your story and being so candid about it. So if you're just joining us right now, you have missed a doozy. I want you to go back and I want you to listen to what Ken is saying. He found an area in our nonprofit sector, a group of people who are not being served, and he saw it and he fixed it. So I want you to go back that, and I want you also to just be inspired by his story of failing forward. And I love the way you say that, of failing forward. Um, the question I have for you, because you mentioned this doing the group study for the CFRE and that you are a CFRE and all of that. But as a CFRE and the president of your own consulting firm, Denali FSP, fundraising and grant consulting, what strategies have you found that's most effective in helping Black men not just enter, right? That's one thing to enter, but to thrive and advance in their fundraising careers, aside from all the other stuff that you shared with us.
Well, we're talking about it, but number one, I'm a true believer in mentorship. So let's put that one out. I've mentored probably 40, 50 men. I have 10 now that I actively, explicitly mentor. So we'll do mentorship. That's number one. Find someone that has an individual that has maybe accomplished something, someone who's seasoned, someone who really you want to be where they're at. Okay. Number two, continuing education. Continuing education. You still got to produce. Just because you're black or a black male doesn't mean you're going to be retained within the field if you don't produce. So how do we produce? Well, we have emotional support through our mentorship and or our groups, MOSID, AIDU, whatever. But the other one is, what are we doing for continuing education? That is so important, is that continuing education. And number three, and I'm a big one on, is coaching. If you have a specific area, invest in yourself, invest in a coach to help you in that area. And then I'm going to throw out a fourth one because I 100% believer in that. Learn AI. I'm going to say it one more time. Learn AI. The beautiful thing about AI, it doesn't care if you're black, it doesn't care if you're young, it doesn't care if you're old, it doesn't care if you have a handicap. AI does not care. But if you can take that intellectual knowledge of how to effectively use artificial intelligence, you can write, because there's not a lot. There's not a lot of people out there. And that's what I love about AI, because it can level the field for the Black community. And so I'm doing things in that world. I'm speaking later on today, I told you, to talk about AI for a Black community, because I want individuals to access this and understand how much of value added it can be to your continued growth.
Now, I know you're very passionate, and it's clear you're passionate about mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but how do you approach mentoring, and what advice would you give to both the mentors and the mentees to create successful mentoring relationships in this field? And I'm going to add to this because I know you can handle it. I also want you to delve a little bit deeper into that AI that you were speaking about once you talk about the mentorship.
Okay. So let's talk about the mentorship. So the number one thing, and I've been mentoring for 15 years. I teach mentoring. I teach it. Okay. So you can tell when I get excited, I start getting, passionate, because I am passionate. Okay. So in the mentoring, the number one thing that I do when I sit down with any individual that I mentor is, number one, I say, this is an explicit relationship. It's not implied. I'm the mentor, you're the mentee. This is where we're going to meet. Let's take care of the housekeeping. That's fine. But I have one question for you, and I've asked every single person I've mentored. First question I ask you, what is your dream? And I say, I give you permission to dream. And then I shut up. Okay. And you'd be surprised how long it takes some men to be able to respond to that, because people have taken away their permission to dream. They've taken away their dream by saying, no, you can't do that. You don't have the skill. You're not worthy enough to do that, whatever it may be. So that's the first thing that I do when I mentor is I am here to engender dreams, number one. Number two, I'm going to introduce you to information. Number three, I'm going to introduce you to people. And number four, I'm going to support you in your growth. I've spent thousands of dollars out of my pocket to send people to conferences, give them educational classes, give them scholarships, because I'm blessed. I'm blessed. And so I want to give back to Black men. I work exclusively with Black men. I don't work with women. I don't work with people of other backgrounds, really white folks, but I don't work with other backgrounds. But that's me, because I know that need is there in this community. I've been in the penitentiary too often to see what happens when we don't have the Black male father figure or leader within the way we're growing up. And I struggled with that also, but I'm not gonna go into that part of it. And what was the second part of the question? The AI.
The AI. Mm-hmm.
So the AI is real simple. You have to teach yourself AI. Don't try to learn it on your own. And I'll put out, go to AI Foundations. AI Foundations. That's where I learned it was the best. I tried to learn off of YouTube, and there's some great YouTube, but that's how I found AI Foundations. $49 a month. I don't get anything from it. I'm not bird dogging. That's what we call when you get a little percentage. I don't care about that. I just care about you. If you invest yourself, I can't eat for $49, my wife and I, period. We can't eat out. That's 1 month. Mm-hmm. And you will learn so much. Tell them Ken sent you. He may even give you a discount. I don't know, because I'm way up in that. But you need to learn your LLMs, your large language models, which is your Chat GPT, your Gemini, your Copilot. But you also need to learn AI video, AI audio, AI image. And then if you can get to the level of task, if you can get to agents and task automation, you will be able to write your own ticket. That's my guarantee to you. You'll be able to write your own ticket as to what you can do and what you want to do. Okay.
Wow. Thank you for that. So I hope y'all wrote that down. If not, you missed it. AI Foundations.
Yes.
Go back and listen. So in your workshops on effective mentorship, because you do light up when you talk about mentorship. I just want you to know that.
I do. I love it.
Yeah.
You know why? Sabrina, let me say this. Sabrina. The reason why I light up is when I sit across a adult grown man and he has tears in his eyes because a dream came true. That's why I do this. That's why I do this.
Yeah.
Not because of me. It's not me. It's you did it. I just helped you. I held your hand.
Right.
And that's one other thing I'm going to say about, and I'll say any more you want me to, but the key thing I even had to learn, took me about 2 or 3 years, is I look a Black man in the eye and I say, I love you. I say it to every man I mentor. Sometimes it takes a little time before they get that trust. Right. But I say, man, you know I love you. So what do you need to do? What can I help you with? Okay. But that's why. I'm probably going to start crying. Yeah. Because I've grown men.
Yeah. And that's probably the first time they may have heard I love you in their life.
And they say it back to me. And it's so funny because I say it a lot easier than they do.
Right.
And it sometimes might take them a year or two. Can I love you too? Can I love you too? Thanks, bro. I love you.
Yeah, I
They're
get it.
serious.
I get it. So, again, in your workshops
Yeah.
on effective mentorship, where's
Mhm.
the most surprising or counterintuitive insight that you often share?
The, well, you took away the one, it's love, because they're not used to hearing that from another man, and it being, I hate to say, truth to them, to be truth to them.
They
So
feel
one
it.
of the key things that and so when I start my guys off, I always start them off with the same two books. Every single guy I've started off with, and that is the 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, and by Nathaniel Brandon, and The Speed of Trust,
Mm.
because it's all about trust. For me to work effectively, and remember, I'm open-ended. Xavier Mason is my first mentee. I've been with him for 15 years.
Wow.
And I got guys 10, 12, 13, 14, whatever. But it's open-ended. Okay. But it's me to build that trust. And because so many people go into mentorship, they get it mixed up with coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be coached on how to write, to do a major gift ask. Okay, I can coach you on that. Yeah, I'm a consultant, not a problem. But that's coaching. I'm here to mentor, to grow you as an individual. And a lot of the guys I start off, we just start off with quote unquote fundraising or development. But I do what is called whole person mentoring. So we end up talking about relationships. We end up talking about marriage. We end up talking about children. We end up talking about finances. I do the whole person because they trust me.
Right. Right. And
They trust a
you've
man. Yeah.
earned that trust. I can
Yes.
I can
Yes.
tell. So, looking ahead, what changes do you hope to see in the nonprofit sector to better support and retain, Black men in development and advancement roles?
Well, first of all, I feel that we're going to have a pullback
Yeah.
because of the DEI
Yeah.
anti initiatives.
Yeah.
I told people when George Floyd, I said we're going to be the flavor of the year, or the flavor of the month for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've said it on podcasts or on
Mm-hmm.
panel discussions, and I said if so, open as many doors, get as far ahead as you can, and then when there's a retrenchment, because there will be a retrenchment, and there's already, and they didn't have to wait for our president to make that retrenchment. It
Mm-hmm.
already had been begun because we were the flavor of the year for actually a little longer than I thought. Okay, I gave it a year, but we
Yeah.
got about 2 years. We did well. Anyway, so my thing is what I see is a retrenchment, but then I see a tremendous growth because of the different groups that are out there now. We have a more solid foundation. Instead of me being one individual floundering as a development professional, an advancement professional, and especially if you're outside of Southeast or the East Coast, where you at least got the HBCUs and you can
Mm-hmm.
grow up within that. But us on the West Coast, we were definitely alone, in many cases, or we're just the only Black male at our organization. Well, now you can go to AADO, you can go to AFP, African American Affinity Group, which I co-led for 10 years. You can go to Men of Color in Development. There's 3 organizations for the Black women in fundraising, and you can join one of those. So you're not alone.
Right.
And then number 2, you have AI, and there's also a lot of free education out there. So
Mm-hmm.
my thing is, I think that it's going to be much, much a little retrenchment. I'd say maybe a 5%, 10%. I hope not. I hope it's
Mm-hmm.
0%. But I'm very, very pragmatic. And then if we can especially get individuals in, I was never as concerned about getting people in to Black men getting into fundraising as keeping them. That was our problem, was keeping them in. So we still always have a funnel, but I think that funnel is even getting larger as we see more people. And this is another key one, and I'll say it one more time. It's seeing Black men speak from the stage.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a lot in that area. I'm not going to tell you all things, but I'm doing a lot in that area to get more African Americans, men and women, to speak
Hmm.
from the stage.
Yeah, yeah. And I thank you for the words that you shared with me when we
Mhm.
met about speaking from the stage. So,
Mhm.
you're always mentoring in some
Mhm.
level or another. Now, there's some questions that we
Yeah.
have here, and I want to make sure that we leave some time to answer them. So, Rona is asking, how can this type of mentorship that you're specifically speaking on be duplicated in other areas? And my assumption is other areas of the country, because you started to mention West Coast, East Coast, and all that.
So first of all, when I started mentoring, all I did was Black men in Anchorage, Alaska, because we used to meet physically once a year but then I would meet with them one-on-one over a cup of coffee, over lunch. I love food, so I always did lunch. Then when COVID happened, and then also when I moved to Washington State, I opened it up. And I would almost say it was a mistake, because all I did is I did a podcast. I did
Mm-hmm.
it was a panel. I had a panel discussion. At the end of the panel discussion, I said, anybody who wants to be mentored, give me a call. I had like 60 guys. And that's what told me that I had this problem. So then I set up Men of Color and Development 2 months later, and we have a whole committee on mentorship. So we have 10 Black men in the fundraising field who are mentoring approximately 40 guys.
Wow.
Okay. And at
Mm-hmm.
one point I had 29 guys, which was just too much. I couldn't
Right.
handle that. So again, and this is a very good question, how do we scale it and make it duplicatable? So we scale it and make it duplicatable. The name of my group is called Pass It On. It's
Mm-hmm.
called Pass It On because I have 4 generations of Black men mentoring Black men. I have a generation above me, Jim Posey, Bernie Washington, da da da, and then there was me, and then
Mm-hmm.
I had my core group of men. If you go to my Facebook page, Ken Miller, 84 is or Ken Miller. It's my picture of me and my mentees, excuse me, and
Mm-hmm.
then they mentor a younger cohort. So that's
Okay.
how I'm growing it there. And then one of the main reasons I speak is to grow mentorship for Black men. So I just started in January a Black men's book study. First time, Black men's book study. It's
Okay.
called the Imperium in Imperio Black men's book study. And what I want to do is duplicate that, because I told the guys when we started this, it'll take us about 7 months to go through the book. And then really what I want to do is we'll do another book that you guys would choose. I chose the first one. But what I really want is each and every one of you guys to start your own Black men's book study. And that's a quote unquote mentorship. It's a quasi, it's not a
Right.
one-on-one, but at least it gets us together as Black men to converse and to speak and to bond. And
Right.
they're all over the country, all
Wow.
over the country.
Wow. Thank you so much again for what you're doing. And Arona also wanted you to know, and maybe you know this person, Carl Nicholas. He
Yeah,
is the first Black male president with the Austin
yeah, I know
AFC.
Carl.
He knows Carl. So I knew, I was like, he probably knows Carl.
Yeah, I'm picture right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you're getting a lot of comments in the chat, and so I wanted to make sure that you are allowed to have. Um, I wanted to make sure, one, that you're allowed to have a final word, but more importantly, you've said some great stuff, and I want people to know how to get in contact with you, because you mentioned your website, Ken Miller. But what is the best way? Where are you hanging out on social media? Where's the best way to get in contact with you? All of that good stuff.
I have a lot of social media. I have staff that take care of my social media, so I don't really deal with it too much. I've always said this, and I am in a position of so much strength and courage as a Black man. And what I mean by that, My phone number is 907-250-8488. It's my cell phone. It's the same number I've had for 15 years. It's an Alaska area code. Okay. Call me. My email is Ken, one of multiple emails, Ken at Denali, FSP.com. Denali, DENALI, F as in Frank, S as in Sam, P as in Paul.com. Stands for Fundraising Service Provider. My best one is email, and I answer all my emails.
Yes, you
And
do.
if a lot of times I can't pick up the phone. I'm in a meeting, I'm dealing with staff, whatever. But anyway, if you want to contact me, if you have some ideas, if you have just some thoughts, feel free. And on this, she's given permission. If anybody has a question, ask the question.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid today. That's that courage part.
Yeah. Ask the question. I find that people sometimes don't take advantage of asking the question. And I wonder why. I mean, you've been in this, you've been on stages, you've been on panels, you've done this. Why do people not ask the question?
Sometimes, a lot of times, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot if you get around me, it's about self-esteem. They don't want to ask a question that makes them feel less than, because that will have a confirmation of my feeling of less than. I don't feel I'm competent. So if I ask a bad question and people look at me a certain way, or the individual who was answering looks at me in a certain way or responds in a certain way, it will reaffirm my lack of self-esteem. It's a confirmation bias. And so what I do is that's why it was so important when I asked about the dream. I give you permission to dream. I will say that when I'm speaking or when I'm teaching, I give you permission to ask questions. Ask any questions. There are no bad questions. Okay, there are better answers than some, but there's no bad questions. So ask your question.
Yeah.
And I honor and respect that you asked the question.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ken. So Ken has been more than generous. He shared his number, he shared his email, he encouraged you to ask questions, all of that good stuff. I just want to thank you for coming on, for your candor in sharing your story, for your candor in just being honest, and also for your heart for Black men in this space and all the stages that you have created to give them a voice. So thank you for that. And not only that, again, you said yes when I asked. I met Ken at a conference, and when I asked, he said immediately. He said yes, and so he is a person of giving heart. And again, for that, I want to say thank you. And actually, that was my last question and comment here. So, Rona, thank you for all the chatter in the comments. And she says at Ken, thank you for leading courageously by example. And that is a great way for us to end. So, bye bye, y'all. Thank y'all so very much. That is Sipping Tea with Sabrina. Y'all be blessed. Bye bye.